When did a feeling of we need to get out of here immediately save you? My mom's bad feeling might have saved me as an infant. She was walking with me in a stroller down her suburban neighborhood street. She says she started to feel a tingling feeling, like she was being watched, so she decided to turn around and head back home. A few streets later she noticed a car driving slowly behind her, the driver, a man, starting at her and me. She starts walking a bit faster and notices he drives a bit faster to keep up, so she gets really scared. Before she can start running, this is the 90s, and she didn't have a cell phone. He rolls down the window and tells her not to run or stop because she's being stalked by a coyote. He saw her safely to our doorstep and then pointed out the coyote, who had followed us half a mile and looked rangy and desperate. It had been slipping from brush to brush looking for an opening. So glad for her intuition and the stranger's help. Edit. Thanks all for the awards and fun conversations. My dad is a truck driver and has always told me, if you are on the interstate near a semi and smell burnt rubber, get away from them because they are about to blow a tire. One day driving to work I smell burnt rubber. There was a semi next to me, so I sped up to get ahead of him. Next thing I know I see a huge crash in my rear view with one car going airborne and flipping. I called the accident into 911 and then watched the news and papers the rest of the day. Thankfully no fatalities, but it was nasty. The semi blew a tire and the car next to it in the middle lane swerved to avoid the tire fragment and hit the car in the far lane, causing it to flip. I would have been right in the middle of it all. Greyhound left me in Santa Ana at 3 AM, told me to wait 4 hours alone for the next bus. Normally I am very selective on when I call Ubers, but for some reason, something told me I needed to leave right away. I find out my hotel is only about 15 minutes away. Wow, a 4-hour wait. So I call an Uber. Uber driver picks me up. I get in the car, tell him something along the lines of, man, they wanted me to wait 4 hours and the station is closed, WTF. He says he's glad I called him instead of waiting for the next bus. I ask why. He says it's a dangerous area and a few weeks ago another girl decided to wait for the next bus and they raped and robbed her. Nobody found her until the station opened up again the next day. Now I always travel with pepper spray. I'm 19. Buying weed with a friend. We go to some seedy apartment in the Bronx with a third guy. Third guy wasn't really my friend, kinda like a childhood bully. We get to the building and walk up a few flights and there's 3 guys in the stairwell smoking crack. These are our dealers. I'm uncomfortable as hell. One of the crackheads tells me to stop being such a little bitch. Third guy chimes in and says if I'm going to be a little bitch I can leave. So I leave. Friend comes with me. Days later we find out the crackheads jumped the third guy. Took his wallet and phone. Beat him up pretty bad. Needed his jaw wired for a few months. I'm a little bitch, but I still have my phone and teeth. Not a get out of here, but a can't leave this like this moment. My GF and I had just picked up a bunch of metal fence posts and stacked them in the back of her car. As we neared being done I had a flash of panic, realizing that the points were aimed right at us if we got in an accident. So I turned the whole pile to be cockeyed so it wouldn't be dead on. On the way home we hit construction. We stopped at the giant flashing traffic light. The guy behind us didn't. We got rear-ended by himself doing 60 plus. I instantly had that same flash of panic and looked over at my GF. She was fine. I looked down. I'm fine. Look in the back. The fence posts are firmly wedged into the sides of the car after being slammed forward by the rear end crumpling. Took my friend out for a drink. First time she had been out since having her daughter 12 weeks earlier. Had around then I went to the restroom. Came back to find her having shots at a table with this random dude. Random dude looked at me and I felt flayed alive. Nothing in his eyes but malice. I grabbed my friend's hand, said loudly, we are leaving now. We left immediately. I went back the next day to pay the tab we walked out on, and the bartender told me that same man was arrested for attacking a woman outside of the bar. I was walking home from 6th form one day and saw a car following me along the street. I was about 17. Edit. Misremembered my age. Got a really bad feeling, so I hopped on the next bus with the plan to change directions and head home at the bus depot down the road. On the bus, I got a text from a guy who'd stalked me for years on and off, with a picture of my school taken just then, and the names and addresses of 2 of my friends. I freaked. Finally told my parents what was happening, reported it to the police. He'd driven over 100 miles to try and grab me and my friend, and had just missed us cause I hopped on the bus and she had gone home early. He got 2.5 years in prison, suspended with orders not to contact any of the girls involved, immediately broke that order, and got another 5 years on top. I'm really glad I got that bus. Lived in a rough place, and have been robbed many times before. Usually a bunch of guys asking for spare change then threatening for your wallet. Anyways, I came out of a club at 2 AM or later, and waiting for a bus in a deserted area with a friend. See a bunch of dodgy looking guys you could tell were up to no good. I instantly get the feeling, but rather than run and have them chase me, I walked straight to them with a bit of a crazed look and asked them for spare change. When they said no, I insisted. They left us alone. I'm not a big or threatening guy by any means. This was one of my proudest moments more than 20 years ago. I was riding my bike during a huge storm when I was 10. There was this huge, recently built brick/concrete wall right beside the sidewalk where I was using as a racetrack. I was having a good time and suddenly I felt that get the fuck out of here, which I did. The next morning as I passed by the place I was playing previously, the entire wall had collapsed. I made a somewhat late night trip to a convenience store that I knew carried wine. I used to work really odd hours and sometimes late at night I'd finish my work and want to have a few drinks. As I was getting back in my truck, this young girl asked if I could give her a ride a few blocks back to her home. It was probably a bad idea to judge a book by its cover, but she was pretty young and dressed decently, didn't act too weird or anything, so I figured okay. Well, I'm heading back, and we get into a pretty rough part of town and she says, turn left up here. Very dark street, whatever. I stop and she says she really appreciated the ride and wanted to do something for me. Asked if she could give me a BJ. I decline and start getting sketched out, like, she needs to get out now. She gets out and closes the door, and as I drive away, 2 men dressed in dark clothing were just stepping towards the street and stared at me as I drove past. Pretty sure that would have ended with a gun in my face. That's what you get for being nice sometimes. I was getting a beer with a friend, and he brought along his friend. When we left I felt very drunk despite only having 2 drinks. They wanted me to come to their hotel as they were getting ready to go to a concert that night, but I made the excuse that I needed to get home because I think I left my oven on. My beer was 100% tampered with. My vision felt like I was in a tunnel. I got home in an Uber and immediately threw up and continued to do so for the rest of the night. A couple years ago, I was walking home from the bar at 1 AM. I'm a young woman in her 20s, so this was instantly stupid, but I wanted to save money avoiding an Uber, and was also drunk, so I wasn't thinking straight. I'm walking down a main but dark street, and then a pickup truck driving by slows down next to me. 2 men look at me, and the passenger asks, "Hey, do you need a ride somewhere?" I'll lie and say no thanks, because I'm expecting one in a moment. They said alright and drove off. I watched them drive down the street and then, a ways down, I saw their brake lights light up. There was no stop sign or stoplight, so I just assumed the worst and thought, I've got to get out of here. I ran into a tiny parking lot to my right and hid behind an outdoor vending machine. Moments later, the 2 men pulled into the lot and circled it, clearly looking for me. When they couldn't find me, they drove away. I waited a few moments until I decided to call an Uber. Not my feeling, but whatever. It was at the Goose Fair in Nottingham in the early 2000s. I was there taking pictures for my art course and my BF at the time fancied himself as a bit of a hardman. Liked to make out he was trained, or whatever. Anyway, after about 20 minutes he made me leave. Said that shit was about to go down. Huge eye roll. Whatever dude, okay we'll leave. I see in the news the next day that a 14-year-old girl was shot dead there not long after we left. My buddy and I snuck out when we were about 14, roughly 10 at night. And we went to check out this little field by my house all surrounded by trees and had a little creek running through it. I really wanted to see it lit up by nothing but starlight. About 1/4 of a mile away I got the feeling of imminent dread. We gotta turn around dude. I got a bad feeling. AWW c'mon booby face McG, you're just scared. Dude, I'm telling you, you can go there, but I'm turning around right now. Alright fine, pussy. He replied. The next day we found out there was a mountain lion attack that killed a dude's 2 dogs he was walking. Where was it? About 1/4 mile away from the field. When was it? About 10:30, roughly 15 minutes after we bugged out of the area. I have no doubt my subconscious recognized a big problem that I hadn't consciously noticed.